Welcome to the latest episode of High Output AI, where Tom and Elliot talk AI and the tools and technologies that make AI happen.
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Sorry we haven't got an episode to you this week. Instead, to make sure we're giving you something, I thought I would get together one of our old episodes before we were even an AI podcast. This comes from episode 2, and in it we discuss different AI takeoff speeds and whether innovation comes as an S-curve or a step change or something else completely different. Anyway, forgive us for the early days of the podcast. We probably also refer to it as we absolutely should start a podcast, which was what we called the podcast when we had no idea what to call it. Anyway, once again, press the like button, subscribe, leave us a review, any comments, hit us up on Discord, leave us any comments on Twitter. You know what to do at this point. But anyway, once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
All right, we're back. Episode 2. Hopefully this time with 100% less echo.
Brought to you by Less Echo Inc.
Yes. That was an oversight on our part. But look, if you suffered through that, I can promise it's all up from there.
50 episode specials. We'll re-record that one.
In a cave for even more echo. It'll be brilliant. All right,
How
sweet.
How are you this week, Matt?
Yeah, I'm good. I am good. It's currently the 8th of April. We got a week until a bit of an Easter break, and then I don't know if you get the same ones over there, but we've got like 3 or 4-day weeks in a row because of all the public holidays. Yeah, that'd be nice.
I don't work 2 days a week anyway. No.
True. Yeah, good.
What are you drinking? To celebrate Friday?
Oh, what have I got? I have a. Don't know if that's going to autofocus. It is a Young Henry's Brewers B-Sides, and you'll love this one, mate. It's a watermelon and mandarin sour.
That sounds like absolute garbage.
Tom does not like sours. He is a Puritan. He only drinks VB and sometimes a 4X.
Other way around.
A joke that only a very small portion of people in the world are going to understand. It's not even funny for those. Anyway, what are you drinking, Tom?
I'm on my second coffee of the day because you stitched me up. I got up early, prepared my little espresso. There's a Roca blend for the espresso, but then dogs needed walking, so I drank that, and now we're on to the Periquial blend this week from Packed Coffee. Filter pour. One episode I'll dive into the 40-60 method of pour over that I use. So
beautiful.
Anyway,
it's
hot, it's steamy, and it's satisfying my caffeine addiction.
Very good. All right, so this week, Tom and I are going to be talking about 2 things, or at least 2 things. We'll probably talk about more. A post that I read this week from Astral Codex Gen about different paths to AI taking off and becoming artificial general intelligence. And Tom is going to talk about a very cool post that he read about hammock-driven development. So I'm looking forward to that. Before we dive in, we realized that we really didn't talk much about why we're doing a podcast or who the hell we even are last time. So we figured, let's do that. And if you skipped the first episode after 30 seconds of echo, you'll get a feel for who we are. So Tom, why don't you take us away?
Well, I thought what we could do here, and I love just putting you on the spot completely, and so you can't disagree with me on we're live on air, but talk about why we're doing this recorded speaking to one another and why we wanted to do it with one another. So I'll start just to give you a 30 seconds warning. So basically, Elliot and I worked together. We started engineering together. We founded Maxwell Plus together. And probably 50% of the time we talk about work, and the other 50% of the time we talk about everything else. I love speaking with Elliot about it because he is a engineer by background like myself, so his mind goes in the same directions as me. But he went a little bit further with the engineering. He went and did his PhD in biomedical, and Elliot's natural curiosity for everything is really a great sounding board for me. I'm I describe myself as an ADHD puppy, and so thinking my own thoughts in my head is very difficult. Very difficult. And the way I think is by speaking. And over the as we've been working together for what is it? I don't know why I looked at my watch, but about 4 years now.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we're coming up on 4 years, 4-year anniversary.
Yeah, I got the just to sidetrack us for a second. I got the clock I use to remember how long the company has been around is when I get the email that my domain name is coming up for renewal, maxwellplus.com, and I got that literally like 2 minutes before we started recording. So
hang on. My domain name.
Well,
have you done a WeWork on me?
No. They are all on my personal account, but it's technically a company asset. That's true.
Oh god. You heard that hit? Someone save this recording so it doesn't delete it.
I actually have a document that assigns it as IP to the company, so I'm safe on that front.
Okay, good. Anyway, so and over that time, Elliot's become my sounding board for everything weird and wonderful across the world. And I feel often we talk about things and then I go and talk to other people who probably aren't as close to the coalface of tech as we are. And they're pretty interested in like stuff that Elliot and I probably talked about that week. So that's really why I wanted to start recording this. And the second thing as well is like, honestly, it's a slightly more productive use of our time other than we'd probably be talking for this long anyway today about these things anyway. So didn't really explain who Elliot is, but anyway, PhD biomedical engineering, good friend of mine. We're both from Brisbane. He's in Brisbane at the moment. I'm sitting here in London, and yeah, welcome to our podcast.
Awesome. Well, that's good. Now, did you want me to give why I wanted to do it, Tom? Because I'm happy to do it. So yeah, I mean, look, obviously there's a lot of overlapping reasons. You got from Tom who we are, what we do, why we work together. I think Tom falls into, that favorite group of people that I know, which is we can pick up pretty much any random topic and go 10 levels deep on it, and it won't get boring.
I think we solved it.
Oh yeah, of course. Especially if there's beers involved, we will solve most of the world's problems, and then promptly, proceed to do nothing about them. But Tom and I were sitting on a plane going somewhere, and we spent a good chunk of the plane ride trying to optimize how to better deliver food and beverages to people on the on the plane, with like putting rails in and all sorts of nonsense like that. And I don't know, it's a lot of fun, and hopefully it makes for entertaining content, because I mean, we have a great time, and I think it's often very interesting stuff. And from the times that we've shared this stuff through our writing or Twitter or just chatting with other people, it seems to resonate well. So we figured, why not take this on as a challenge?
Yeah, we can also both treat this as our personal journey of being less scared of having an opinion in a public place.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this podcast has been put up on a YouTube channel that I had created probably 12 months ago, saying I am going to start making YouTube videos, and I renamed it to this podcast's name because I never got around to doing it. So I'm glad that we're finally doing that.
Good. Yeah, that's enough. That's enough about us this week. Let's jump into it.
Yep.
What are you talking to us about this week, Elliot? What are you presenting?
So this
what are you bringing
week,
to the table?
What am I bringing to the table? It's a story of my life. This week, amongst a whole bunch of stuff around sort of artificial general intelligence and when it's coming and predictions around it and things, I read a particularly interesting summary from Scott Alexander on Astral Codex 10. I swear sometimes that guy writes so much stuff that it must be a team of people. But anyway.
Who is he? Tell us a little bit about him.
So I always get these two confused. So if I fuck this up and you're listening, Scott, I apologize. He's a psychologist, maybe a psychiatrist. I don't know. The more legit one. Sorry to whichever large portion of people I just offended. Yeah, I'm glad we do this in one take. Anyway, based out of New York, he writes under the pseudonym Scott Alexander, and he used to write on a blog called Slate Star Codex. then one of the New York publications, could have been the New
He
York
got
Times.
doxxed, didn't he?
Yeah, they have a policy where they only use people's real names, and obviously he talks a lot about things that, obviously he's not breaching patient confidentiality, but it may make relationships with his patients weird if, he's a public figure on a lot of outspoken topics. So he pulled that down. Ultimately, came back on Substack, as it seems is the flavor of the 2020s. With his new blog, Astral Codex 10, and he writes a lot about society, humanity, quite a bit on artificial intelligence, surprisingly, which is really awesome from my point of view. And this post was a summary and a review on a couple of different takes on how quickly AI is going to take off. We'll put it in the show notes so that I don't have to read the whole title, because it's a debate between a couple of people, and one of them has a 6-syllable surname, and I'm not even going to try. But I found it really interesting. So to give you the 2-second summary and end my ramble, and we can start to discuss it a bit more. The main premise is there's 2 arguments about how artificial general intelligence is going to come about. So for those not familiar with the term, it's when the AI gets smarter than us. And when it's smarter than us and we built it, theoretically it can build more AI, and it continues to get smarter indefinitely until, it's as smart compared to us as we are compared to snails, for example.
And it's snails as well.
Yeah, well, that's all right. It'll
But
be
an important part of that is the speed that it will accelerate past us, right? As well, right?
Yeah. And I think the question that these 2 groups were trying to answer was, will there be enough time in between us realizing the artificial general intelligence is coming and it arriving for us to take the measures to make sure that its first decision is not eradicate all the humans? And it's very... He's got other posts on, I guess, more specific timelines. But what I found really interesting here was these sort of different looks at how these innovations come about. So the 2 main clusters were the exponential growth. So basically things are good, then they get a little bit better, and then you've got slightly more resources, so you can do something a little bit better again. And this continuous improvement stacks up non-linearly, obviously, but that's what will get us there. So it can go very, very quickly, but there's a nice path to follow. The other one is described as the sudden FUM, which is where it's nothing, and then it's there. And the rest of the post really talks about, I guess, the nature of innovation and which one of those is more likely, which I thought was very cool. I'm very much on I'm in a weird spot with it. I wrote about this a little this week, in that, like, I think it's one of those things where from the inside it looks exponential, and from the outside it might look very sudden. So there was that release of that DALL-E 2 network from OpenAI this week. I sent that to you, Tom.
Tell us about that.
So that's synthetic image generation from text prompts. So you can say, I want a picture of a astronaut riding a horse in the style of Claude Monet, and it'll generate you a pretty convincing looking image. Now, it has its shortfalls and things like that, but it was one of those sort of step function changes in our ability to do things.
And how is that a step function for
so
us laymen? Yeah,
I mean, historically, we've had the ability to generate synthetic images, generate images from text prompts and things like this. But I suppose the quality here and the vastness of the prompts that it will respond to is pretty astounding. And you can start to think, to give an example, like Getty Images does a lot of stock photography. If you can suddenly say, I would like a picture of 3 people in a boardroom looking at a whiteboard, pointing at things and high-fiving each other over their success, And it won't just generate you that one image that is on all the billboards and you can't really use it in your marketing because everybody else uses it. Instead, it generates 500 candidate images out of nowhere and you can pick whichever one you want. That allows us to do things pretty quickly. I mean, that's a pretty boring example, but you can imagine how that extrapolates to animation. Some of these images are quite photorealistic as well. Just generating a whole lot of content.
Well, yeah, the interesting thing to me about that is like the next step of that is like content production from a video and imaging point of view. So like you could be able to, people like me that could theoretically start creating moving pictures from it.
Yeah, 100%. I think, that breaking down those barriers is, to me, so interesting. Like just enabling people to have that creativity and be able to make stuff without needing years and years of training. And don't get me wrong, like it's not perfect. And you eventually start to see the patterns and you think, oh, okay, fair enough, this is AI generated. But it does the like 80 to 90% job of it very, very well. And it's amazing. But coming back to the post, the post was written earlier this week, and a similar discussion in the post was around GPT-3, which is a text model. So you can type in some prompts around, can you write me a blog post about, XYZ, and it'll spit out paragraph after paragraph of text. And, some people say that was a step function, but then they look at, okay, what was GPT-2 like, and GPT-1 and other language models before that? And there's a pretty consistent linear trend. And there was a comment.
The linear trend.
Well, look, it's a linear trend over the fullness of time. So there's lots of steps there. But it's one of those things where, the day before the model is released, it doesn't exist. And then the day after it does. But behind the scenes, there was hours and hours of work for many, many people to make that happen. So it's a funny measure, I suppose, to measure things on. Because, when does the model exist? At what point do you switch up the capability curve? But there was a comment in there which was taken from the website lesswrong.com, and it was from the author of Gwern.net. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And he said something which I remember talking with a friend about long ago, which is that innovation in any field happens as a process of stacked S-curves, where you start off slow, you do all the hard work, you invent something, you release it, you rapidly exhaust all of the low-hanging fruit that thing can do. So let's say we very quickly replace all of the Getty images with DALL-E equivalents, and then we get to the territory of, this AI can't actually do this. It can't do animation. So that's kind of where it starts to stagnate. But at the same time, people are working on the DALL-E 3s, which may do animated images rather than just static ones. And then that S-curve sort of sits above the other one, and it starts to ramp up, ideally, when the other one is slowing down. And if you zoom out far enough, that's what makes curves look exponential. But behind the scenes, there's no such thing as unlimited growth. You got to have GPUs, you got to have breakthrough, you got to have work, you got to have data. And I think that points a lot more to the exponential looking improvement, but realizing that under the hood, it's not really a, tomorrow's DALL-E 2.0001. It's these sort of work on things for a long time, release them, and then we get a step up in capability. And we do that again and again and again, which gets us better overall.
So this is a really, it comes down to like, what's your frame of reference, right? Like, to be really boring about this, it's like, what are you putting on your x-axis? But so where do you see, where does your opinion lie with the state of AI? It's like, are we plateauing on a bunch of S curves at the moment, or is there things coming out? Like, what's on the horizon? Do you even know? Like, I understand you probably don't know everything that everyone's working on in the world.
Yeah. I think we're going to hit some ceilings. We're going to hit some hardware ceilings. And, if you look back to probably 2020, when crypto was getting hyped, suddenly you couldn't buy a GPU. No matter what you wanted to do, all the GPUs were just gone. And you look at how little margin there was in the chip manufacturing industry, we're still playing catch up. You couldn't get a GPU, you couldn't get a PlayStation 5 because people bought up all these resources. And now these are the
Couldn't
same
get a car.
Well, yeah, it's, and I think if the New Zealand government suddenly decided they wanted to build artificial general intelligence and they were going to invest every tax dollar into buying up hardware and making this possible, we'd hit a production ceiling very, very quickly. At the same time, there are plateaus starting to emerge around some of the techniques we've been using. Deep networks can only get so deep. And the reality is that no matter how good your network is, there's noise in the data. And eventually you hit a noise floor. So I think there's still breakthroughs to be had. There's still barriers to be overcome around hardware and other things that means that, we're not going to suddenly see artificial general intelligence, just appear overnight in the next couple of years. And I think, luckily, most of the world that is working on artificial intelligence in a very serious way is doing so in a fairly collaborative manner. Now, that might not always be the case, but I like to hope, as a bit of a techno-optimist, that the work on AI as it approaches this sort of super intelligence will be a lot like the space stations, in that it's neutral territory, it's for the benefit of humanity, and you better all play nice with each other because this is dangerous stuff.
Yeah. So where do you think we are in terms of where do you think the more rate limiting step is? Is it hardware or software?
Oh,
sorry, or hardware or methodology?
I think if you had unlimited budget at the moment, you'd hit a hardware ceiling faster than you'd hit a methodology ceiling. In the long term, is the hardware going to keep up with the latest and greatest techniques? We're yet to see. I mean, Google's built custom silicon, Amazon's built custom silicon, Facebook probably will too.
What is custom silicon? Is that the M1 chip and things like that? Or?
Yeah, well, that's one example of it. Yeah, like Apple's M1 chip. So, people are building CPUs, or, in Google's case, these TPUs, these processing units that are like super optimized for the kind of operations you need to do for AI, whether that be for training your AI or actually running them in production. Because, GPUs were designed to do graphics rendering, which, it involves a lot of parallel operations, but they're still quite general in nature. So there's a lot to be gained by building your own hardware, as expensive as it may be. And it's practical if you're Google or if you're Amazon, but if you or I said, let's build our own, it's not really a feasible exercise.
And so maybe we're going a bit off topic, but what is rate limiting about the hardware? Is it, for example, where there's we're never going to travel faster than the speed of light kind of thing? Like, what are the like first principle rate limits that we got about current hardware?
Yeah. I think the thing that would stop us getting to AGI right now is not necessarily a technological barrier in hardware, which there are many. It's, how do we make transistors smaller so that we can stuff more of them in the same size chip? Well, the problem is that our manufacturing industry would pretty quickly cap out at its ability to produce compute power as quickly as we wanted it to. And then, these GPUs are power hungry. And if we suddenly ran as many GPUs as we could get our hands on in one spot or even around the world, our demand for power would go up probably quite significantly. You saw some of these Bitcoin mining rigs like wreak havoc on the grid.
1% of the world's consumption at some point.
Yeah. And, by all estimates of today's methodology, the compute we would need to get to AGI is, probably similar orders of magnitude to big cryptocurrency sort of usage.
Okay, so it's one of these things where it's like cost prohibitive to even think about. And I mean, when I say cost, I don't mean dollars, but obviously it translates to dollars. I mean, we would basically have to shut down everything and direct every electron of power and every bit of silicon and copper in the world to making GPUs to be able to have the compute power.
Yeah.
Today, and until there's a radical change in either the cost effective, the power effectiveness or the materials used, we're probably unlikely to hit the compute required for AGI.
Yeah, in 2022, that is true. I mean, we could find something that very quickly changes that, but there's nothing, to my knowledge, that's sort of on the horizon that's going to shift that in a drastic way.
So dare I ask, how does quantum computing fit into this?
Yeah, I mean, given the fullness of time, do I think the units that run these will be quantum? Probably. But current quantum hardware is, it would not be able to do a whole lot. It's not general purpose. It has very limited compute capacity because it's just very hard to build quantum computers. Now, if we got some sort of Moore's quantum law where the, power of them doubled every 2 years or probably faster, because if quantum works as it's promised, it'll be very quick. Yeah, we could have those very quickly. But we're still quite a long way away from that, I think. I'm not an expert in quantum, though, so I could be wrong.
Okay. So can you tie this all back together for us with where we were in linear versus step change, non-linear versus step change development of AI?
Yeah. So I think coming back to the original question from the article, which is, will we have enough time before the AGI arrives, the artificial general intelligence, before it arrives, to prepare? Because there'd be huge societal shifts that we need to make if these sort of tools exist. From the best of our current knowledge, I think, yes, there would be enough time, theoretically. There's probably a whole separate discussion of, would we actually spend that ideal amount of time preparing, or would it be similar to climate change in that we'd, put our head in the sand until the AI is knocking on our door saying, hand over your CPUs or pay the price? I don't know the answer to that one.
Yeah. It's there's the from what I've heard today, it sounds like we have more than enough time, and anything that managed to even get slightly intelligent, even slightly general, would run into compute restrictions pretty quick. But what worries me about this situation is like the human's inability to deal with non-linearity.
Oh yeah.
Like and and something is half its value today and double the value next year is something like we're just not very good at thinking about. We think in linear trends. We're bad at extrapolating. And
definitely.
And we're all very good at procrastinating and individually and putting it off to the last moment. And it sounds like if the COVID pandemic's shown us is that humans are pretty good at doing that as a species.
Yeah. I mean, just one last comment before we switch gears to hammocks and things. I think there's also a very real fact that, like, I think the path towards artificial general intelligence comes from a lot of useful revenue generating products turning into more work. I really find it hard to believe that anyone is going to fund the billions upon billions of dollars necessary to just esoterically work on AGI. So it's going to have to have an ROI before it has general intelligence, which brings in all sorts of other sort of weird economic factors.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll save that one.
And it'll be therefore it'll be a very, very specific application of AI that is very lucrative to a few number of people. Probably.
That's how. Before we sign off, anything you want to plug? Any good books you've read? Interesting things? Fun toys?
So I've got a new book here. I don't know the brand of it. My little sister got it for me for my birthday. It's beautiful. It's Japanese. It's called Standard and Technology Stationery. Beautiful red cover and grid. You can't see it, but it's got a time on each axis, each y-axis of the page. Y-axis of the page. I don't know this thing. And then it's got a little date and year marker as well. It's just beautiful. I love it. And then I've got my new pen as well, which I got for my 30th from my parents, which is just makes me happy writing with it. So I don't know. Anything change in the background for you? You got a blue light this week. That's very exciting.
I do. I mean, it was there last week, but I bought it just for YouTube. So I thought, you know what, I'll turn it on. But the cool thing that I have this week, just let me shuffle around. So I bought a MIDI keyboard and a synthesizer. It's something I've always wanted to learn how to do is play synthesizers. So who knows? Maybe one day our show intro will be my shitty synthesizer music.
Can we actually?
I mean,
your first song that you're not highly embarrassed about has to be our intro.
Or look, if we can change the intro when it gets better, yeah.
No. We're gonna go Tim Ferriss on this. The intro is gonna be the same intro the whole way,
okay.
even if it's lame and you laugh at it, as he said. But for those that playing at home who don't know, Elliot's not a half bad singer as well. So
it's been a long time. I don't know if I'll have vocals in our introduction, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. All right, good stuff, man.
Is here.
Yes.
Good. I just finished my coffee. That's perfect timing.
All right. Well,
enjoy
anyone
weekend,
watching,
mate.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll pop a whole bunch of stuff in the show notes. Midas also wants to say goodbye. But yeah, catch you all next week.
Bye-bye, everyone.